It's great to have you all here.
Okay, so we'd like to welcome you to our 21st session of Galactic News. We are going to give you an overview of what's happening from the inner side of things and see what is really emerging on the planet in many, many different levels. And I certainly welcome you all to be with us. And we, of course, always welcome your questions and comments, and you can type them into the chat. And then we will, I will respond to them as much as I possibly can. It's always, good to hear from you. And then we will continue and see where we emerge to. So we're going to take a few moments in the beginning. I'm going to ask Corinne to lead us in a meditation. And I want to thank you for being with us. And we thank you all for coming. So let's go ahead and start with a meditation.
Yes, welcome everyone. Much love and joy to all of you. Okay, we thought we'd do a meditation on facilitating the flow of financial resources. Sound like a good plan?
A necessary one.
Both personal and planetary. So that's what we're going to focus on this morning in this broadcast. So if you'd like to just begin by taking a few deep breaths. Breathing in peace and stillness, and just letting the moment expand. With each breath, feel your feet planted firmly on the earth, on the ground. And if you would, focus in your heart and align with the light alliance and the great spiritual teachers in all traditions. So let us see the flow of financial resources passing out of the hands of the forces of darkness into the hands of the forces of light. The hands of the forces of light. See these funds being very abundant and distributed to the many groups and individuals serving the common good. See these funds distributed widely. See the financial system being reformed to become more fair and just. Fair and just. See the resistances to this in the system being overcome. The resistances overcome. See the global currency reset bringing the greatest good to help humanity. To help humanity. The global currency reset. To bring the greatest good to help humanity. And now ask what you can do to support this work spiritually and make an inner commitment to do so. What you can do to support the flow of financial resources more widely, to be more just and fair, to be distributed widely. And just see this money being transformed so it may bring forth the highest good. So when you're ready, again, take a few deep breaths. Feel your feet planted firmly on the ground, and know that we can each do this work to help with the financial flow. Okay, so
well,
thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Corinne, for leading the meditation. That was good. Very good.
You're welcome.
So we're going to begin today to look.
And I'm going to just go off screen now, and
Okay.
I'll see you at the end, everybody.
Yes. Okay. So we want to start today with a type of an overview of what is occurring in the world and all the different levels, and what's happening with the various initiatives that are being planned and being worked on and have been worked on for a very, very long time. So this is what we're going to look into. So the first thing is, many people I know have commented on, we seem to be in like a holding pattern or a stasis. It's like the higher forces call it a positive pause. We are there's much ongoing activity and work planning going on to help us be ready to receive the incoming energies. And these plans and preparations have been put in place a long, long time ago. And we're finally coming to fruition after such a long cycle of waiting and planning and working for this unfoldment. So there has been a great deal of defeat of the dark forces on this planet. It's steadily ongoing, and their power to control or influence human events is rapidly decreasing, and the power is shifting more and more towards the light and away from the dark side. And those who are aligned with the dark are being brought into visibility. This is the key thing. They can function very well when they're invisible to us, when they're hidden. But when we bring them out into light and we see what they are and who they are and what they're doing, it makes it much more difficult for them to function. And that's what we're gradually seeing. More and more of that is happening. And so, and their ability to control and influence events on this planet is diminishing. It's still happening. There's still things going on that are not good, for sure. But their ability to do that is dropping off. It really is. And that's very important. The other thing is that the energies behind the dark side that made it possible for them to do the things that they've done all these centuries is been cut off. It's been blocked. It's been taken away. And the more and more of the light energy is pouring in through all the alignments between our Earth and the solar system and the galaxy and all that we've talked about. That is making it more and more difficult for the dark activities to even have energy to be carried forward. That's definitely going on. And that's a really important development. The other thing that's really important is that ordinary people are beginning to recognize the sources of their suffering, beginning to see who is against them, who is trying to take away their support and their rights and everything else. And that people are waking up and demanding that these people be removed from positions of power and influence. This is definitely underway, as we can see with all the marches, the Me Too movement, the anti-gun movement, all the different things that are going on. There's really a huge uprising against things that are so harmful to so many people. And this is going to continue to grow, and it's shifting the balance between the light and the dark. The whole key here on the planet is the balance between light and dark. We've had a lot of influence by the dark side for many, many centuries. That is steadily decreasing. The influence of the light is increasing more and more, and it is lifting us out of that type of control. And people are realizing what's happened to them, and they are taking steps to change that. So let's talk about our favorite two players on the world scene, El Trumpo and Mr. Putin. they are two of the very major players who have a lot going on with our world. And they're not the only ones, of course, there are many others, but let's just for a moment focus on them. They actually think alike because they both want power, and they want more power for very personal reasons, as well as they want to make, they have a very nationalistic focus in the way they're trying to accrue power, which never leads to the ultimate higher good. When you're trying to only create the good for a part of the whole, you are ultimately doomed to fail, and that will never result in the good for everyone. It just doesn't work like that. The only thing that really creates long-term good is that which is dedicated to and structured and focused on good for all. That's what we really have to look for. So now Putin's doing this thing for his country, and what he wants to gain more power. But this doesn't mean that he's ultimately evil or aligned with the dark side. He's not. He is to degree, he's not cooperating with the cabal, and he's working behind the scenes in some ways to oppose them. He also has financial and information on Trump's dealing and his sexual secrets, and he's trying to manipulate Trump using them, but not totally successfully. And of course, he didn't want Hillary to be president, and they organized to try to prevent that through the multiple media manipulations to influence the election. And Trump did support and collude with him in doing that. That definitely happened. So this is there. And Mueller, the investigation of this collusion and the Russian interference in the election, he has evidence of this collusion, and he will ultimately make it public. And this, in the long term, could lead to Trump's resignation. We don't know how this is all going to play out, but it's a possibility. And even though the Russian trolls did some damage using through the control of the social media and manipulation, the real issue is the control by the cabal of the media itself, which they use that as a way to slant things and report things in ways that made it very positive towards Trump and negative towards Hillary. That's what happened with the election. That's a major factor as well. So even though the whole thing looks very gloomy and dark, if you will, that doesn't mean necessarily that things are not unfolding towards our planned lighted future, because they are. And that's really, really happening. This looks like, from the point of view of ordinary reality as we see it on the news, seems like a ridiculous comment, but it isn't. It's very real. This is actually true. Because the Light Alliance works from the causal level. It doesn't work from the level of effects. In other words, it doesn't go in and fix things after they've happened or try to make things better in that way. They are working for very long-term causes that they're setting in motion that ultimately work themselves through and out into the world. And that's the way they work. So it doesn't always create immediate results, but the results are real and long-lasting. That's the very point. And one example of that is the Korean situation. There has long been a plan by the Light Alliance for a reunification of the two Koreas and a peace treaty ending the war, and ultimately gradually more exchanges and more trade, which will ultimately culminate in a reunification of the Koreas. It will be fully completed on the day of revelation. But there's much that is being done and can be done, as we see, to actually bring this about. And it is possible that there will be an agreement to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, because actually all parties in that area, including China and Japan and US and everyone, really wants this to happen, including North Korea. And so that whole thing is moving towards a resolution. And that is a very wonderful thing. And you have to give Trump some credit for actually stimulating that in certain ways by being super aggressive and demanding intense sanctions and all the rest of it. However, that's one thing he has done that you can point to as a success. All right, or we hope will be a success. It hasn't happened yet. Now, the focal points and centers of the dark power in the financial system are steadily being taken over by the Light Alliance and their trusted allies and agents. That is happening. There's a lot going on in the financial world. There's the financial reorganization, as I've talked about before, is intended to reorganize the world currencies, and the valuation of the world currencies will be based on the resources of each nation, and there will be debt forgiveness, and there will be the elimination of interest-based fiat money will be gone, and we will have a whole new way of managing the world finances. You can imagine the complexity of trying to get all the nations of the world to agree to this and actually carry it out. This is a huge thing, and it's been going on, the preparation for it has been going on for many years. But the plan for it it's very difficult, therefore, to predict the precise time of when this is going to occur because of the resistances in the system and the complexities and all the rest of it. So, however, there is progress, tremendous progress. And what I've been getting is that things are pretty much prepared for this transition into the new economic system. And of course, the question everyone wants to know is, when is it going to happen? Well, what I'm getting is that everything's ready, and they're just waiting for the right timing for this to be announced and for it to come about. But what I'm receiving and what I'm hearing from all the other sources that I'm in touch with, it's not going to be very long. Very soon is what everybody's saying. We don't have a date because they don't give dates, but it is coming.
On the inner level.
Very, on an inner level, it's definitely, the conditions have been created for this to occur. That's clear. So that's a wonderful thing. And we're going to see that unfold in the days ahead. There are Light Alliance members who are working inside the system to reform the system. And believe it or not, this includes the Chinese and also many other players in Mnuchin from Secretary of Treasury and all these who are working in the system to set up and prepare for this changeover into a wholly new way of managing finances and money. So but you can only begin to imagine the complexity of all this. But and when you're working in that kind of world, it brings inevitably a certain amount of engagement, and you get somewhat compromised because you have to deal with the cabal and the dark side to some extent in order to be effective at all. And that becomes difficult. I'll give you an example of that. George Soros has attempted to do good, but he had to be involved to some degree with the cabal, and his involvement has compromised his capacity to fully function for the light, because he's mixed, like many. He is aligned with the Light Alliance with his intention, but not always in his actions. That's the reality. And this is a common condition of people who seek to work inside the system. So that is part of what's going on there. And it's a very challenging assignment to work inside the system. So I'm just going to pause and see if there's any questions or comments anyone would like to offer about what is happening, or questions on what I've said, so that we can see. You can just type them into the chat, and I will respond as they appear. Okay? Let's see if you have any comments or questions about this. Okay, if not, I will carry on. Okay, so what we're looking at here now is the process of bringing change from the inner levels, where it's already held, it's happened in terms of the reality of subjective time, it's already there in the future. And that is definitely there. Let me just see what kind of message somebody just said. Okay, here's a question. Good one. Thank you. From Elizabeth. Is meditation the only way to check in with the Light Alliance to make sure our actions as well as our intentions are in alignment? Do you have other tips? Okay, well, I think that's really great. And of course, meditation, you don't necessarily have to be in touch with the Light Alliance per se, or a member of the Light Alliance, in order to get clear sense of what is in alignment for you. What you are seeking is to be in alignment with what's being held in your heart and in your soul as your soul destiny path. What is it that you're meant to do? What is it that's your contribution that's uniquely going to be yours? I mean, that's the most fundamental question for all of us, is what is your soul work? What is your higher purpose? And so that comes through deep dedication to doing that within yourself, a deep, unimpeded commitment that you are going to carry forward what your highest purpose is. Even if you don't know what that is, the dedication is necessary first. And that is really useful. And then you can ask clearly, ask for guidance, ask for help in understanding that purpose and what that might be and how you can. And then you have to look for the results. You have to look for intuitive flashes that may not come up or come in at the moment when you're doing the meditation. It may come some other time. It may come in other ways. You may hear a song that stimulates something and you say, oh my gosh, that's it. Or somebody says something to you and that resonates in a certain way and you say, yes, that's what I want to do, or that's what's right for me. You have to be very open to all kinds of signals coming to you from any multiple sources. That's one thing. Another is, of course, you want to eliminate everything that creates static in your field. You know, the static can be what you're taking in through the media, stuff you're reading, other people who are giving you negative inputs, all that stuff. You need to do your best to move above that, not stimulate more of it, stay away from it, and stay focused on your own inner commitment. And a lot of that has to do with making sure you're strong and healthy within your own being, that you're taking care of yourself really well. And that means food, not only your physical diet, but your media diet, your relationship diet, all the things you're taking in, being very scrupulous about that. And it may sound a little prissy or Virgo-y, but it is a very, very valuable discipline to realize, you know, I'm not really going to focus on this because this doesn't resonate as part of who I am and who I am becoming as a contributing member of the Light Alliance. It just doesn't fit. And I don't want it in my space. I don't want it in my consciousness. So I just don't bring it in. That's really, it's a powerful thing to do. It sounds very simple, but it's a discipline that takes a lot of focus. It is really a necessary thing. Now, someone's also saying, yeah, it is some very good comments here from Nancy. It's a higher degree of spirituality to be able to hold these opposites in tension without having immediate answers. Also, to pay attention to our dreams is one way to check in with ourselves and the Light Alliance. Yeah, that's all really excellent. I mean, holding the opposites means, yes, we have a lot of dark, heavy stuff going on the planet, no doubt. And we also have a huge amount of light and positive energy and positive initiatives and new insights that are pouring into the earth all the time to support us in our shift. That is also going on. Both are true. We have to hold them both, and we have to be able to, but we give our fundamental focus to the positive, realizing the negative has its place. It's part of, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment, why is it that we have so much upheaval, and see that that's part of the process also. So that's very, very useful to look at that. And
have confidence in the future.
yes,
That this
that's
will be
the other
transformed.
thing. We have an opportunity to help create the future. This is the most important thing of all. Our thoughts, our vision, our sense of what the future is and where we're going and what we are going to become as humanity and as this human civilization on Earth, that vision of that is so important. And it's why that Kabbalah has dedicated so much effort to creating negative scenarios and frightening people to death and causing people to do everything to have a horrible view of the future. That is completely their strategy. It is completely destroyed, that strategy, by holding the vision in the light, in the love, and the world that is emerging on this planet. And I will give you later lots and lots of examples of how that is emerging. But this is really the key. And to hold that vision, remember that we are moving into higher frequency energies. We are going through a huge cleansing on the earth. We are all, each of us, finding our way into this higher consciousness. It is unfolding. And it's in the victory, the culmination of all of that process is inevitable. Nothing can stop it. Nothing the dark side can do, nothing anybody can do can stop it. It is part of the divine plan for this planet and this solar system and the 7 solar systems that we're part of. So, you know, we can relax about all that, really. Even though, but it takes, we all know how much effort and will. This is where the spiritual warrior thing comes in. The spiritual warrior says, I am not going to give in. I'm not going to allow myself to be manipulated by this nonsense of dark scenarios and all the other crazy stuff. I'm not going to allow my attention to be ripped off into, the latest little gossip tidbit about so-and-so did such and such to so-and-so. Who cares? The most important thing is, what are you focused on as your main interest in life? What are you doing? Where is your energy? Where is your consciousness? Are you holding the higher vision? Even however small it may be, you don't have to have the vision for the entire cosmos, just vision for my life, my relationship to my partner and my neighbors and my family. What am I doing to actually make that incongruent with this higher vision of where we're moving as a society, as a world civilization? That's the key. That's the secret. And this is lovely. Someone is saying, Corinne's offered affirmations on your website that are very helpful to me. I say them aloud in my own pared down version every day. Thank you, Corinne. Yes, affirmations.
I think it's visionarylead.org.
Yeah, the website is www.visionarylead.org. And do you know where it is? It's on there somewhere. and that is really useful to be able to train your mind to think positively. One of the things we learned at the Findhorn community in Scotland was the power of positive thinking. That when you have that positive thought directs energy. It creates a channel for energy to flow. If it's positive thought, you create positive results. That's really important to do. So that's really a very, very wonderful discipline to use. Now, here's a great question. Do the nature devas have a role on the global scale? Absolutely, of course they do. I mean, the nature devas are everywhere in every element of our natural world. There are sylphs and undines in the water. There are fire elementals in fire. There are air elementals and every level. And they are guided by these higher order devas, or some people would think of them as angels, but they're nature angels, that are actually providing the blueprint and the streaming of energies from the divine into the planet to help hold the energy in the right balance, to keep all things flowing in symmetry and keep anything from getting too out of balance. If we hadn't had that kind of help, can you imagine what kind of condition this planet would be in by now? It would probably be dead, but it doesn't happen because there are all these forces and powers that are working to help keep it in balance, to help protect nature. Even though we've had a lot of damage, it has not ended the viability of the ecosystems of the planet. That's still there. And that's the kind of support and help they are giving and will continue to give more and more. And as we learn how to recognize that and work with it consciously, the whole game is going to shift radically. And we'll talk more about this later, because I have some wonderful examples of what people are doing to actually change, to help clean up the environment, what's going on here. So so Elizabeth's saying, I'm learning to channel them, but not sure what direction to go in. I know people have worked with them to grow vegetables, not sure what else. Well, yes, someone says they will lead you. Yes, that's certainly true. And you ask for guidance. I mean, the main thing is when you communicate your love and your appreciation for their work and their contribution to this planet, that creates a communication channel, creates a relationship, because most people do not understand any of this. And so they just go about their lives blithely doing whatever, and some of it's very damaging to the environment. But when we appreciate them, they open and communicate with us, and talk about what they need, what you can do to help. That's very real. And sometimes it'll just be an intuition. You're working in your garden, or you're taking care of some trees, or whatever you're doing, and you'll get this sense, oh, this plant or this situation needs this. Okay, so then you get inspired and you do whatever you're getting the intuition to do, as long as it's positive and it's helpful to nature. That's going to be in alignment. Yeah, someone's mentioned parallel to gardens in Virginia with Michelle Small-Wright. That's a fantastic example of working with nature at a very high level and working with the David forces there and doing remarkable things. She's quite an amazing person. So let's go on to, let's just talk more about how do all these wonderful things on the inner planes come about into the 3D world that we're in. Most of us. How do we actually see this happening? Okay, right. First thing you have to understand is we're in the midst of the culminating struggle to turn the orientation of human society towards the light. That is a struggle that's gone on for millennia and is steadily moving towards culmination. And on the inner planes, the battle between light and dark is over. The light has won. It's done. But it always takes cycles of time for the effects to fully filter down into the 3D world and create the necessary inevitable changes. It takes time because it has to work through all these different planes and subplanes to get to manifesting on the physical in 3D. Since this outer world in 3D is the most crystallized of all of its forms, there is always friction between the existing forms and rigid patterns and the incoming higher energies seeking a complete shift and reorganization of the entire physical dimensional systems. That's what's going on. This causes crises and upheavals, and it's a necessary part of the transformation-transfiguration process. The old forms are steadily being worn away by the pressure of the new vision and the energy supporting its manifestation, including the demands of the awakening public. These demonstrations, these uprisings against all the old system that are so harmful are very, very important and very much a part of the creative process. The other thing that's going on is that the old system has been built up from the energies that came in at the beginning of the Piscean era. And they were formed around certain principles of strong leaders, individual leaders, and to have the everything focused around dogma, orientation towards specific doctrines and all the rest of it. And that whole cycle of focusing and organizing society in that way is dissipating rapidly before our eyes. And the thing that's going on that's not so obvious is that the life force that created and supported the past old system is being withdrawn as we move more and more toward into Aquarius and out of Pisces. There's more and more of the energy is coming into this new forms, which are group oriented, doing things in groups, doing things for the good of the whole, service as the keynote. That's the really beautiful thing, is that we're trying to serve the whole, serve the world. Service is the keynote. And these new energies are getting more powerful every single day. They are. And as people see these new forms coming into view, they're forms that are simpler, they're more beautiful and magnetic, and they shift. And so people shift their allegiance away from the old forms and into these new ways of living, which are the world of lighted and lighter living. So everything's getting lighter, easier, simpler, more beautiful. That is part of the shift that's going on. Now, of course, the old system is not going to just lie down and die. It's going to continue to try to maintain its power. But the ability to do that is steadily decreasing. That's what I really want you to see, how much that they're losing power all around the world. That is crucial. So any comments on that I welcome that. And you can see this in every field, and whether it's medicine, and people are leaving pharmaceutical drugs in droves and adopting non-invasive, more natural, holistic treatment systems where you look at the whole self, all levels, physical, emotional, vital body, mental, and spiritual, and using supplements that are pure natural and things, and not all these chemical supplements and pharmaceuticals. That's underway. That is going on hugely. It's a huge revolution. And that's really important. In food, of course, we have people are moving out of contaminated food with pesticides and going more and more for organic food and clean water, and trying to find ways to create that and make sure that it is that and guarantee that. The whole agriculture world is shifting. Farmers can make more money growing organic food now than the regular food because it costs less for all the pesticides and chemical fertilizer inputs, and the price of the produce is higher. So there's a shift going on there. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. The other area that's really great is the area of social responsible investing. This is a movement I know a lot about. I was the founding director of the National Association for Social Investment Professionals. And basically, the movement of money out of just making money however you can, doesn't matter what the company does, just get lots of money, and then if you want, you can give some back to some charities, and that makes you feel good. But meanwhile, the companies that you've bought into have wreaked havoc on the environment and people and communities and everything else. That movement, that attitude towards investing is radically changing, hugely. We started the social investment movement. We had about a few $1 billion invested out of the total trillions and trillions in social funds. From that time, which was in the
late 1980s.
1980s,
late
80s till now, today, there is now over $9 trillion invested with some kind of social criteria related to it. That is it's the fastest growing sector of investing in anywhere, in any country. The millennials are saying they do not want to invest in anything that's harmful to the environment or people, and they're really getting very careful about where they put their money, as many, many other people. And this is changing the whole worldwide investment community. And sustainability of what your companies are doing is very, very crucial to where people will choose to invest their money. This is really important.
And how you protect the workers and
it's also
community.
Protecting and doing right by the people working in the company. It's doing right by in the local community where your company is based. All of these things are really crucial to changing that whole world. And in a little bit, I'll talk about the FIRE movement, which is a millennial movement, which is extremely interesting, but we'll get to that in a bit. so cleaning up pollution and protecting the environment is a high new level of energy coming in and changing the way we relate to nature and the environment. The political movements for fair and honest government and releasing religious separativeness and violence. There's some good initiatives on that with United Religions, which is an organization here in the Bay Area started by Bishop Swing of the Episcopal Church, where they have cooperation circles of 3 or more different religions coming together and working on projects that help the community.
Around the world.
All around the world, hundreds and hundreds of them. And this is a way to help break down religious conflict and separativeness. So, and there's more, I'll talk more about the examples in a bit. So the accelerating, steady downloading of the fifth dimensional consciousness into people everywhere, as well as into the living substance of the earth itself, is raising the frequency of human beings, it's raising the frequency of the planet, and it's raising us closer and closer to that time when we will be living in that fifth dimensional reality. And I'm going to talk more about that in a bit, what that's like. So now I'll just pause for a moment and see if there are any other questions. Okay, and there's, yeah, there you go. It's calling on spiritual help like Joan of Arc to strengthen the, someone in being committed to natural remedies when the doctors want to put you on statins. Yes, statins are not a good idea, period, no matter what you have heard about them. They are not a good idea, as Azima Leela Forrest, you know. And there are many, many other alternatives, and that's really very effective. Sharon has said something about checking out Swell Investing for sustainable investing. I have not heard of that one, but there are many new ones emerging all the time. That's wonderful. And it's really wonderful to see how committed the millennial generation is, and the younger, to investing in sustainable ways and not investing in things that are causing harm. This is and the millennial is the biggest generation we've had so far. And this is having an effect even more. It's feeding into the whole social investing reality and making it more and more mainstream. Most of the major investment houses now have socially responsible or sustainable environmental funds where you can put money in, and the money is supposedly used only for environmental companies or positive companies. Now you have to be very careful because some of these things are not that real. They're just greenwashed, made to look good. So you have to do the research to find out for sure what is actually there and what is actually being done with the money. But
you can go to socialinvestmentforum.org.
Yeah, you go to socialinvestmentforum.org. That's the organization I helped found. And they have a listing of all the social investment advisors all over the world where you can go and get help and assessing companies, deciding where to put your money, that if you want to have money to invest. That's all very useful and very good. So this is part of the change. It's the whole thing about the new energy coming in. It's the seventh ray. It's spirit and matter coming together, spirit coming fully into matter and embodying itself in matter, so that everything we do on a very practical, human, physical, organizational level is totally congruent with our spiritual values and our principles, and we don't do things just because they're convenient or expedient, but we carefully look at everything we do, the food we eat, the people we're with, the kind of companies we support, the kind of products we buy, the way we deal with our compost and our trash, you name it. Everything needs to be carefully thought through and put into a proper order. The motto of the Aquarius and the seventh ray is a place for everything and everything in its place. And I think that's a really great way of thinking about all this. And You know, I find myself in my home, I'm really dedicated now, the last couple of months, to reorganizing everything so that everything's super organized. I know exactly where it is and where I can find things and exactly get rid of stuff that I no longer need and only keep stuff that's useful and give it away to people who can use it and all that kind of thing. So that's really, really helped. Okay, I will give you the link. I think it's sif.org, isn't it?
Yeah, we need to look it up.
I think I have it. I can pull it out for you. Yeah, sif.org. I think that's it. Yeah, there it is. ussif.org. That's the organization that has an overview on. Yeah, oh, here's a good one. Elizabeth saying, living in the desert on the road is helping me purge everything unnecessary too. That is a great discipline. I've done it. When Corinne and I left Findhorn many, many years ago, everything we owned fit in 2 backpacks. That was it. We had nothing else. And we left Findhorn and we came to the United States and we traveled all around giving workshops and seminars all for the most glorious 9 months of our lives. It was an incredible adventure.
In 1978.
In 1978. And then we came back to Massachusetts and I had clear inner guidance to buy a piece of property and start a community like Findhorn. And we did that. And we started a community. And it's called the Sirius Community. You can visit the site. It's a wonderful community in Western Massachusetts. And it's Sirius, SIRIUS community.org. And you can see all of what's going on there. You can visit, and they have programs, and it's a beautiful place. And that is, we lived and worked there for about 12 years and really helped ground that in the United States. So let's now look at what is the sequence of how this is going to unfold, because that's what everybody wants to know, is when and how is this going to happen? So the first thing is, as you know, if you've been listening to any of these presentations, is the dark ones, all the cabal and all the obstruction resisting people will not be present on Earth after the day of revelation. They will be removed to other systems and that resonate with their vibration. So if you're caught up in anger and hatred and violence and whatever patterns you have that you haven't resolved, those are going to influence and determine, in a way, your own individual frequency. So when the energies start pouring in, you will be, if you cannot vibrate to the energies of light and love, which will be so powerful, you will be taken off to another place to continue your evolution, a place that is matching your vibrational frequency. This is the magic reality here. This is the most powerful thing you could possibly understand from what I'm telling you. Therefore, it is very, very important for all of us who are all conscious to move into as highest level of love, forgiveness, gratitude, and everything else that keeps our vibrational frequency high, so that we raise that frequency, so we'll be able to work with and be in that energy that's coming in steadily. It's already coming in. It's not just going to happen on one day. It's building up and building up. But there's like a culmination point where it gets very, very powerful that we haven't reached yet. So I think that's all very useful. So now the dark side is still here, some of them, and they are doing a certain amount of things that are not good, obviously. Look at the world. And they will be removed at the time of the day of revelation. But before that, they are not going to be free to wreak havoc on the planet up until that time. There is, as many of you have probably heard, a large number of sealed indictments against many of the people who are the leadership of the dark side and who have actually cause so much difficulty and suffering on the planet. These people, at the right time, these indictments will be served on these people after we have the revaluation of the currencies. That's the first step that's coming up, is the revaluation and reorganization of the financial system, along with the opening and the activation of all these indictments. That's coming. And once that comes about, those people who are very self-serving will be placed in like a quarantine where they will not be able to influence humanity or events. That's what's part of what it's going to happen. And these would include people who are cabal members, as well as people who broadcast hate and division over the media, and they will be arrested and held with no access to communication channels, media channels, public channels in prisons and in internment locations. And those people who have collaborated with the cabal to a lesser degree will be given the opportunity to understand what they have aligned with and make a choice to shift to working with the Light Alliance. People will be given this choice. We're always given choices. And those who sincerely shift will be integrated into the ranks of the Light Alliance light workers. These are people that are not deeply involved in all this stuff, but have just done things that, as part of their trying to get along with and make a living and do other things, have done some things that are not great. But the interesting point here is the sincerity of their new allegiance to the Light Alliance will be validated by those people who can actually truly see into people's deeper motivations. We're talking about people who can just see through you and know what's really true in your being. That's going to prevent people from just, faking it and hoping they're going to be okay. That's not going to work. So that's a very important distinction there that is present in this process. Okay, let's see what we got here. How is the revaluation going to be introduced without seeming like a global takeover? Well, here you go. First of all, what is a global takeover? Most people, when they use that word, that phrase, they think of a dark, but malevolent manipulation of people's lives and consciousness so that they can gain further power over people. That's really what a global takeover in most people's thought when they think of what that means. It's a fear-based reality that, because there have been efforts to take over, and we have Nazism, we have all kinds of things going with the cabal and the financial system and all. So of course, these are real concerns. I don't belittle them at all. At the same time, the fundamental thing that's going to make it different is that people will see that it is actually benevolent in how it affects them personally. This is really key. If we announce, let's say, we, the Light Alliance, announce that, okay, we're going to have a debt holiday. All your debts are suspended for now and probably will be forgiven, most of them. And then we are going to institute a new currency, that the United States currency will now be gold and commodity backed, instead of just issued by the Federal Reserve any amount and you pay interest on it just to get it into circulation. That whole system is gone, has been removed, and we have a currency that's gold backed, and the value of the currency is based on the resources of our country and every other country in the world. And it's a fair system. Therefore, you cannot play all the funny money games that everybody does, manipulating currencies and money all over the world and making huge profits, producing absolutely nothing of any value, but just ripping off the system for everything they can. That whole game will be over, totally. And people will see that there is money now available. You will be able to borrow money without interest to start businesses and do things. You'll pay a fee for the use of the money, but it won't be this gigantic sums of money for interest. It will not be that at all. And when we have debt forgiveness, you're going to have people say, you mean my mortgage is over? and we say, yes. I don't see how anyone is going to look at this and say, oh, this is awful. Can you? Not me. I mean, and there are many, many other features to it. And it is all in the goal of freeing people from economic slavery, which most people are in, having to do things and work in jobs and do all kinds of stuff to just barely make enough money to survive and live and feed their families. And it's a ghastly, ghastly system. And it's been in place for such a long time. People can't imagine it could be any different. But there are beings at other levels who can't imagine it being extremely different. And those beings are working and they're prepared, and it's about to precipitate. That's what I'll tell you. It is. I'm sure of this. So what we're going to do is, of course, see the other thing that's a really key part of it is people will get, and there's already a lot of talk about this being put out there. It's very interesting. A minimum amount of money that everyone will have as a basic amount of money to live on as part of the new, that is part of the new system. That means that you will be able to rely on X amount of dollars per month that will support your basic living expenses. You aren't going to be, probably, it's not going to be gigantic, but it'll be enough to live on. And that will take care of people, which is crucial to eliminating the survival fear that plagues humanity. It's really huge. And it's really a massive effect on every single human being on the planet. Even those with plenty of money, they still are influenced by the subconscious fear of, will I ever have enough? Will I lose my money and then I'll starve like everybody else, and on and on. It's a subconscious miasm that permeates humanity. And that we can remove that. That is going to do as much to lift people into the higher consciousness as anything I can imagine. It's a very important part of the process. It's not the whole process, but it's a very crucial part of it. We've got to work from the bottom up, from the subconscious, freeing the subconscious, freeing from all the fear. And we're going to work as the top down, all this energy coming in from the higher dimensions. And when we have the final alignments, it will be so much coming in. It will be hard to imagine, but it is going to happen. It doesn't hard for me to imagine, but for some people. Anyway, so let me just look at what we got here. And we got all kinds of.
So if you own properties and manage it fairly, it's fine. Though.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. So the bank's collecting money will be replaced as a first step. Yes, the whole banking system, as I've been saying for a while, many years ago, banks are going to be reorganized. Because right now they're profit-making entities, that the profits from the banks and the interest on money goes to a few banking families all over the world, and they get ghastly rich, and they meanwhile extorting huge amounts of interest off of everyone. If you buy a house, you pay 3 times the price of the house on the interest to buy the house over 20 years or 30 years. Insane. It's a gigantic scam. It's been going on for so long. It's like, oh, that's just reality. Well, it isn't. And so that's going to change. Banks will be reorganized. Instead of being profit-making corporations, they will be reorganized as public utilities. They will function like a public utility, governed by a board of people who are looking out for the common good. And you can borrow money from a bank, not with interest, but just as a fee to use, to start businesses and have positive uses for it. That will also be there. And that's going to change the way banks function. The mortgage system is going to disappear. It's part of debt forgiveness. Mortgage is a huge debt. You know what the actual meaning of mortgage is? Mort means death, and gauge means gambling. So it's a gamble with death that you will be able to pay off your house before you die.
Mortgage.
A mortgage is a death gamble. That's what it is. That's what it means. That's what the word means. Now, isn't that interesting? Well, that whole game is about to end, and it's one of the worst games that we've ever seen. No. Okay. Some people are saying, well, if you tell the bank I don't have to pay my mortgage anymore, banks will say, no, you still do have to pay your mortgage. this is a level of reorganization which goes deep into the entire banking system. We're not just talking about a few people say, oh, I've heard I don't have to pay my mortgage. Well, if you say it now until it's reorganized, yes, they will say that. But once we go through this reorganization, the banks themselves will be reorganized in such a way that there will be no longer any debt on their books of mortgages. That will go. Credit card debt also will go. All that's going to go. Now I realize that sounds completely fantastical. This is like rainbow dreams and what have you been smoking, man? I'm telling you, this is a real plan, and it is there, and it's being implemented, and it's very close to being ready to be fully actualized. So that's what we can look forward to. Now, I'll get to timelines in a moment. I am going to talk about timelines, but just let's
check other chat.
Okay, so someone's asking very practical questions. This is good. How will this happen? Will the banks be sold to someone new, or the families will turn to the light, or will they become public by elected politicians shutting them down? It's probably more along the lines of the third option, which is the power to create the banks and manage the currency currently is vested in the Federal Reserve System in this country, and most countries have something similar. Not all, but many do, except for some very interesting exceptions like Costa Rica, where it's managed by the government and they have no public debt, no debt at all. It's very interesting. And there is a movement in certain, to have public banks is already underway, which means banks controlled for the public good. And they don't charge gigantic sums for interest, and they work as a positive, providing the service of financial wherewithal to create new businesses and to manage transactions and make sure the financial system works as it should. That's already in place, very small, tiny. Every solution we need is already there in a tiny microcosm. But all of this requires is to be scaled up into much, much bigger projects, and that's what we're looking at. However, the specific process will be the elimination of the Federal Reserve by powers that supersede the political process and will actually be part of the Light Alliance's influence over policy, which is growing steadily. And I can tell you stories about this, but but basically, Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury in the United States, is working directly with the Light Alliance. I've said this before, but people are saying it's hard to believe given his personal way of managing money and all the things he's done with excess spending. But he is working with the Light Alliance, and he is under their guidance, and the system that's being implemented for the transition of our currency to gold and commodity-backed currency is in play right now and will happen. So that's really in process. But so, the actual specific implementation process is not totally clear to me. I'm sure it's clear to some people, but I think that basically it's going to be a shift in the power to issue currency back to the United States government, where it was taken out in 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act, which was passed on a bogus kind of passage through the Congress, and go back to the United States government, which will be in control of the issuance of the currency and will make sure that it's asset backed and will become the new currency, replacing the dollar pretty much on a one-for-one basis. That's what I've been told. So that's the good news on the financial system. Okay. So what's going to happen now? The question's already come about timing. After the revaluation of the currencies and the reorganization of the financial system, there will be a period to do that, to institute all these things I'm talking about, debt forgiveness, and distribute funds to people, and begin building settlements for the poor all over the world. And there are vast resources being held in Asia of gold and other precious commodities, which will be backing the new currencies all over the world and providing the funding to rebuild the infrastructure for humanity. Instead of being siphoned off by the elite, wealthy cabal members, it will be used to provide all basic food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, and education for all people in the world. This is the plan. The favelas are going to be taken down. New villages are going to be built, which are beautiful. And that is going to be part of the shift that's going to happen. It's part of it. The new technologies will just begin to be released somewhat around the reevaluation of the currencies. And then that will accelerate and gradually be fully implemented at the time of the day of revelation. But until then, it will be a slow release of some of the new technologies, like free quantum energy. I don't know exactly what's going to be released when, but there will be some release of these new technologies and healing technologies, all kinds of things. Okay, what I'm looking at. Okay, well, we don't end until 11:30, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's what's going on with that. Okay, let me finish this and we'll get to religions. This will be a fun one. The thing that's important to understand about the global currency reset is that there are many, many light workers around the world who hold currencies of other countries, especially Zimbabwe, and Iraq, and what's going to happen with the revaluation of currencies is each nation's currency will be evaluated based on the wealth and resources of that country. That includes what's in the ground, what's in the education, the resources at the education level, all of it will be evaluated. Each country will have its currency valued based on their own economic health and well-being and their resources. Therefore, there are certain currencies that are going to be extremely valuable, including Iraq, because it has a lot of oil in the ground, a lot of other precious minerals. Zimbabwe has tremendous gold reserves and diamonds in the ground. All these things will make their currencies more valuable. That's why many, many people who know about this are holding those currencies as something that will be exchanged for dollars at the time when the currency reset happens. What this means is there's a lot of people, light workers, who will have huge sums of money to actually give away. And the way it's going to work is the money that they hold will be exchanged, but a portion, about 80% or so, or you can decide how much of the money will be held by the banks. You will get interest on it, and that money will be used for worldwide redevelopment projects and helping rebuild for the poor and all the rest of it. The rest of the percentage will go to you for projects you want to do or your own use. That's the way it's being proposed and what I've heard about it. And that's as clear as I can be about how that exactly is going to work. But what that's going to do, when that money starts flowing out through all these people and all these nonprofit organizations, it will change the atmosphere and the attitudes of people all over the world. As money flows to the positive projects everywhere, much of the stress of trying to solve problems with inadequate resources and meet the needs will diminish. And there will be a relaxation of tensions, and a more open, caring world will steadily be emerging. That will be like a spirit of goodwill that sweeps over the earth as a precursor to the day of revelation. It's like preparing us by incrementally allowing that positive sense of the world, and it's safe, and the people care about me, and they're going to help us, and we're going to build and rebuild and make this a beautiful planet. All that is preparing us for the next level where we're really going to go into that higher consciousness and be able to fully experience that. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, let's see what we got here. We'll get to the religions in a moment. Rock will also be considered a valuable commodity if we move away from fossil fuels. Eventually, we will not use oil at all because we're going to have quantum field direct source energy coming. And there are many, many devices that already can do this. It's just a matter of allowing it to be released. They will come. Fresh water will become one of the most valuable commodities as climate change takes effect. Yes, but if we have unlimited free energy, then you can create desalination plants that will be set up all over the world, anywhere there's deserts or anywhere else, and you can then rebuild and water the deserts, which were once beautiful gardens. I'm talking about in the Middle East and everywhere the water is needed, and actually begin to provide enough water to grow food everywhere it's needed without any huge expense. That's part of the picture. And, you know, you have 40% of the young people in the Middle East are unemployed and no jobs for them. They can't get married. They're frustrated sexually and every other way, politically. And of course, what are they going to do? They're going to go and they join the jihad. I mean, that's all the options they have. But if you start creating projects where they're rebuilding that whole region and they're creating gardens and businesses and everything is blooming and blossoming, it's going to change everything. It's not going to be like this desert of opportunity. It will be a desert blooming with so much well-being. That's the vision. I'm telling you, this is really going to happen. Now, yes, Russia has a tremendous amount of wealth in the ground. That's certainly true. Diamonds, everything. Yes, the unlimited free energy technology is still being held back because of the threats of the cabal. It's not as severe as it was, and there are some people who are actually releasing more and more information. You can actually go on the internet, Google it, find devices that will show you how to build a free energy device, and you can build it in your garage, and there you have it. You can do it. It's there. I know. I've looked this up, but it's not going to be widely distributed yet. But it will, as we move more and more out of the control of the dark and into the light, it's going to become available, which is, of course, what we would want. So that's part of how it's all unfolding here. Now, this spirit of goodwill is really important because people will realize that human and planetary life is precious and is to be protected and supported in its evolutionary growth. And I'm not just talking about humans, of course, that's very fundamental, but the growth of and flourishing of all the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdoms, all the kingdoms, even the minerals being brought to the surface and polished and allowed to radiate their beautiful energy into the world. All of this is part of protecting and raising the energy of the earth. This is coming. Now, the timing of the day of revelation is not fixed, but it will be somewhat influenced by the speed of the reorganization, rebuilding efforts of humanity after the global currency reset. The conditions on Earth and on other worlds are one of the many factors being considered, but the ultimate determination of the timing of the day of revelation is tied to the alignment of the 7 solar systems, which I've talked about quite a lot before. And it will be, what I've gotten now is it will be in approximately 1.5 to 3 years after the reevaluation will be the day of revelation. So this is the first time for a long while that I've actually released any kind of timing about this. I'm going out on a limb again, but I think that this is a reasonable assumption. But again, you know, I'm not infallible, but I'm telling you that's what I'm receiving right now. It could change, but it does seem a reasonable possibility. So, yeah, if you want to find out more about free technology, there is a book I'm sorry, I don't have the name of it right now, but it is there's a book. I can get it, and I'll send you out the information on the book. It's a summary overview of about 20 or 30 different free energy devices that have been created by humanity and are functional. And they've not been widely distributed, of course, because of all the limitations we know of, but that's an overview. The other, there are other people that are working on this also and are gathering information about it. And when will the reevaluation of the currency take place? I didn't say. I said the preparation, or I should have said if I didn't, is complete for the reevaluation to happen. Everything is in place. This is based not on just what I'm receiving intuitively, but there are people who are collecting data from people who are involved inside of banks, inside of what are called redemption centers, where the currencies can be exchanged when the time comes. There are people tracking how the currencies are showing up on the exchange screens on computer systems worldwide. And many people who are talking about the training that the bankers have gone through, the preparation at the redemption centers. There's a tremendous amount of information about what's really going on behind the scenes here. And what they're saying is everything is now ready. And it's just a matter of the right timing for them to give the go ahead. And the way it works is if you have currencies, they will be releasing 800 numbers, and you call the 800 number, you give them your zip code, and they tell you where the nearest redemption center is where you can take the currencies and get them exchanged. That's what I've been told, and that's what I've confirmed this. This is the legitimate process that's been put in place for this, which is pretty amazing. And what it's going to mean is that it's going to be a tremendous amount of wealth flowing to those people. And if you have evil purposes behind your idea of getting your hands on all this money, you will be prevented from exchanging it. That's what I've been told. Because believe me, the Light Alliance has ways of evaluating people's motivations and know who's who and what's what. And you will not be able to exchange it if you have dark motives of what you're going to do with the money to cause harm. If it's going to cause harm, you won't get anything to be able to be exchanged. And that's very interesting. So is Wesley Bateman the author of what? I don't understand what you're saying, author of. No, he's not the author of the Free Energy System book. Wes Bateman wrote a book, several books. One is about the power, how the spaceships are the actual systems themselves of how spaceships operate and what the system is, with diagrams. And I have that book. I can get you that. I can send out that information. Wes Bateman was a Federation telepath. I consider myself a Federation telepath also. And he gave out tremendous amount of information about what's going on with other civilizations and their relationship to humanity, about the history of the Earth and what happened with the planet and the destruction of Maldek and what the pyramids were really all about. It's an incredible book. It's called
You'll send it.
No, I can think of it. Give me a minute. I'll think of it. Anyway, just look up Wes Bateman. You can buy them on Amazon. It's Bateman, Wes Bateman, and he will. Oh yeah. Okay. So I think we're going to wind up now. Unless you have any other burning questions, I'm going to give you a little, as I promised, what's life going to be like with the day of revelation and afterwards living in it. And then we'll give you, but before I do that, actually, I want to give you some of the positive news because I think that's really important too. So let's do that first, and then we'll do the day of revelation. So just some quickies.
Headlines.
Yeah, just headlines. Yeah, that's the one, Knowledge from the Stars. I think that's it. And there's another book. can't think of it right now. Anyway, so some of the good news that's actually happening. The U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission said that in January and February, 98% of the new U.S. power generating capacity in the United States came 98% from solar and wind. All that much of the new generating capacity. That is wonderful. Germany has decided to rid itself of using glyphosate. They've started a program to actually ban it in all kind of public places, and they're going to completely remove it from agriculture by 2021. Beautiful. And Europe, by the way, the EU has banned all pesticides that affect the bees. That is now in place. They will not be using any of that anymore. Michael Bloomberg has pledged $4.5 million to pay the amount of money that the U.S. would have paid if we had remained in the Paris Climate Agreement to the United Nations to support the administration of the Paris Agreement. So I think, oh yeah, through alien eyes. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. That's it. So that's wonderful. There is so much going on in terms of the inventiveness of humanity. There are several new devices been created. One is a solar-powered water wheel that collects trash, and they've collected up 40,000 pounds of trash a day from Baltimore Harbor. The trash is picked up, recycled, incinerated, and is powering homes in Maryland. There's another new kind of ship that's being developed. It's not yet functional, but it has powered totally by sail and solar. It scoops up trash and it takes it on board, recycles it, breaks it down into tiny little plastic particles, stores it in the hull, takes it back to home base, and they turn it into new plastic products. They have a factory in Mexico that's building houses out of this kind of recycled plastic. It's wonderful. This kind of stuff's going on everywhere. It is so wonderful. There's a new kind of low-cost home and this is talked about, there's a group called New Story. It's about creating new homes, a nonprofit housing group, and a new paradigm construction company called Icon, who has a 3D printer that prints out this substance, almost like cement, but it's not, and it runs along walls, and it creates a house in 24 hours, 800 square feet, costs about $4,000. That's the future. One of the futures for housing is we can create houses so fast and so beautiful that it's just unbelievable. And there are many examples. If you go and Google it, you can find it online. It's amazing. So that's some of the pollution things. The mayor of San Francisco, Mark Farrell, has said they're going to plant 2,000 trees in San Francisco in the next 2 years. The other thing that's, okay, now let's look at politics. The big thing in politics is women are fed up. This is Time Magazine reported this as a story. Women are totally fed up, and their teachers are striking because of all the cuts to their salaries and to even enough supplies for schools. And the Women's March in January was the biggest single-day protest in U.S. history. The Me Too movement has given women power to speak up against sexual harassment and misconduct. Women are the major drivers behind protests about healthcare and gun control, and the angry women will have a major impact on the election in November. Emily's List, as some of you know, is dedicated to electing progressive women to the state and local and federal offices in the Senate and Congress and everywhere. In 2016, they had 900 women who wanted to run for office and asked for help and mentoring and how to do it. This year, today, they have 36,000 women who want to run for political office. How about that? That is really wonderful. That is really amazing. And that shows you what's going on. There's this activation of women and the power of women. This is the age of women coming into their own. This is coming forward, and it's going to be a gigantic wave that's not going to stop. That's wonderful. Iceland has just elected a 41-year-old environmentalist woman as their prime minister. And she's dedicated to making Iceland carbon neutral. And they're doing all kinds of things to bring in environmentalists into the government. It's really wonderful. In the United States, 18 states have sued the Trump administration to defend the clean car rules, which, he's trying to get rid of the clean car rules, and as well as allowing companies to throw pollution into the rivers and wreck the soil and everything else you can think of to destroy the environment, but it's not going to happen. Costa Rica plans to remove fossil fuels from all of its transportation by 2021. And they got a plan to do this. They're working on it. It's going to be all electric. They're going to go out of fossil fuels completely because the remaining pollution in Costa Rica is now from vehicles and transportation. And they've already cleaned up all the electrical generation plants, but now they got to work on the transportation. This is a new step. The Munich the Munich Business School is implementing conscious business and communication as a required class in its MBA programs. First time a major business school has done this. And Dan & Company has certified itself as a global B Corp. A B Corp is a promise that the company will do business in a way that meets very rigorous standards of social and environmental performance, transparency, and accountability. They're going for it totally, all the companies. Okay, what about lifestyle? Okay, this is fun. The Harvard did a study. Occasionally Harvard does a useful study. And this one was about the physical and emotional well-being of people. And they tracked two groups of men, one from Harvard and another group of growing up poor in Boston from 1939 to 2014. And the study demonstrates that having someone to rely on helps your nervous system to relax, helps your brain stay healthier for longer, and reduces emotional and physical pain. So the combination leads you to live longer and be happier in your life. So the fundamental bottom line is you can have all the money you ever wanted, a successful career, and be in good physical health, but without good relationships, you won't be happy. That's their conclusion. How about that? And so I want to talk about a very interesting movement now. Where is it? It's called the FIRE movement. I don't know if many of you have heard about this.
Financial independence.
Yeah, it's Financial Independence and Retire Early. This is a movement that's sweeping the millennials. There is a very big focus on it now in the millennial circles. And it started by a friend of ours named Vicki Robin, who wrote a book, Your Money or Your Life, some of you may know it, where you start evaluating what you want to spend money on based on how many of your life hours it takes to get the money to buy the particular object. And the goal of this movement is to learn how to save and reduce your expenses throughout your life so that you can retire around 40 or even 35, as some are doing. And what you do is you instead of putting savings the last thing after you spend all your money, savings go first. You put a certain amount of money you set aside for savings, and then you spend money on other things at the minimal level you can. So they have a whole system. They now have a forum on Reddit. They have 365,000 subscribers to this forum where they're trading tips on how to do this. And they have a very 7-point plan on how you make this happen. And there are thousands of people who have done this, retired very early with enough money to live on. Some of them have paid off their houses and they have money in the bank, and that's all there. First thing you do is you make saving money your default action. Instead of spending money and then looking at what's left, you save the money first and then spend what's left. You use a money tracker to know what you spend. You track every penny you spend. So you change your social life so you don't go out to eat in restaurants. You create events like potlucks and other things where the cost is so much less. You do everything you can for yourself and share skills with other people if you need to. You end recreational shopping. You only do very smart, careful buying. And you learn how to raise kids without having a huge amount of money. And you still travel, but you do it very frugally. There's a whole meme that has grown up around this process. And it's getting very large. And it is liberating it's like examining the whole thing. I'm going to work my whole life really hard, make a lot of money, and then the last few years of my life when I'm barely still alive after that ordeal, I'm now going to have a good time. No, we're changing it around. I'm going to be very careful about how I spend my money, build up enough savings so that I can get out of this wheel of work, and spend in the middle of my life when I still have my whole life to enjoy it, 35 or 40. That's what they're doing. Brilliant. Yeah, so that's, yeah. Okay, I like these comments here about going back to the women thing. Women are not angry, they're outraged, which is a very positive, powerful energy. I agree. You go for it, women. I love it. I think it's fantastic. All right, so, yeah. All right, so, so all this stuff is going on, and it's really important that we realize that the whole process is underway. There is more and more happening. More and more people are woke. More and more people are taking action. They're changing their lifestyle and their life patterns, and they're refusing to participate in an illegitimate, slavery-producing, corrupted system, and instead building the new ways of living that are actually the prototypes for the new world that is coming into being and will be fully actualized not that far into the future. So here we are at the cusp of the new world, and we are very close to it. And I'm very pleased that you are stayed with us, and we are continuing to work and do this work together. So we do appreciate your donations. It helps make it possible for us to do this work and cover the costs of the website and all the services we use. So if you would like to make a donation, maybe Ginger or Sheila, if Ginger can put it up, if she's still here, yep, there it is. You can click on that link and make a donation that way. And we thank you so much for your ongoing participation. And we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Next month.
So thank you all. And Corinne wants to say goodbye too. Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for your wonderful, and I love to hear your comments if this was useful and was something you want to just hear anything you'd like to see different or more of or less of. I'm happy to hear that and just see if this is really effective for your ongoing liberation from anything that holds you back. Okay, very good. So, and we are so blessed to have you part of our process, and we thank you for continuing with us. And we're coming up to it. It's getting very, very close. And once that occurs, it's going to be a very different world for all of us. And we will see something quite remarkable that we have never seen before on this planet. And that is my firm conviction that that is what's coming about. All right. So much love and blessings to everyone. And let's see you soon.
Blessings, everybody. Have a good week.
Okay, I'm just leaving it on so you can continue to make comments if you like. And that's fine. Okay, so
people are still typing in the chat.
People are still making comments. That's
so if
great.
You're watching live, you can see the comments.
Right. Thank you. Okay, I guess that looks like the end of it. Okay, much love and
best wishes, everybody.
Best wishes to all of you for your ongoing revelations and your ongoing freedom to be able to create and be as you choose and as you can contribute most to the unfoldment of the world as it is meant to be.
Yeah.
So, blessings.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.